Now, I remember a few months ago, while I was doing my campervan conversion, the only thing I was really terrified of was the electrics. First of all, I had no experience. I haven't done any 12-volt system ever in my life. I had no tools, but what I had was the power of internet. And after probably watching hundreds of hours of YouTube videos on how other people do it, I think I finally done a good job, and maybe I can share my experience with you just to simplify things and show you what I've done and what is my setup. Now, before we begin, full disclosure, even though you're gonna see a lot of RENOGY products, everything you see right here I've purchased with my own money, so it's not in any way, shape or form sponsored by RENOGY or any other manufacturer or company. Now, starting from the top of the van, I have chosen a single, for the moment, solar panel. It's RENOGY 175 watt. And why one and not three or more? Well, first of all, with the setup that I've used, it's gonna be very easy to scale up the system. So if, let's say, I'm gonna need 2 more additional panels, I can just throw them up there and that's it. My whole system will work with more solar panels. To be honest, this summer while I was away, I had absolutely no problems whatsoever with this setup, with this kind of setup, with just one solar panel, and I'm gonna explain why. Now, the positive from the solar panel, first it goes into this fuse, which is also a switch, right? So bear that in mind. If you're gonna connect any solar panel, make sure you put it in you put a switch on it. That's very important because right now the system is shut off, okay? And if you're gonna have a live wire going into the charge controller, you can burn the charge controller if it's not connected to the battery. So what I've done is I've used a 30 amp fuse with a switch, so I can turn the system off. I can turn the power coming in from the solar panel. I can turn it off, so then I can safely shut down the whole system without me going up on the roof and disconnect the wires. This is a RENOGY DC to DC with MPPT 50 amp solar charge controller. What it does basically is it takes 25 amps from the alternator of the van and 25 amp of potential solar power. So right here, this is the entry from the photovoltaic. You can see the PV plus. This is where it goes in. On the bottom, this is the wire that goes to the battery of the van. I've also fitted a switch under the bench seat in front of the van. And the good thing about this charge controller is that once the battery is topped up from the solar panel, it redirects the energy to the battery of the van, so you can keep that battery topped up as well. It does that automatically, you don't have to do anything. But just for safety measures, I've put a switch on the front for that as well. Now, from the charge controller, we have the positive wire going out, once again into a fuse with a switch, same as the other ones. From the switch, we're going into the blade fuse holder. This is where all the electrics from the van go out. Lights, fridge, diesel heater, and whatever you will have. Nice thing about this blade fuse holder, if a fuse is ever going to blow, there is a light that will pop out and showing you exactly which fuse has blown. We also have the positive to go on the battery, and the inverter has separate wiring, so I'm not running into through the fuse box. It just goes directly onto the battery. for me a 1000 watt inverter is more than enough, because I don't have any heavy appliances. I'm only using 230 to charge up batteries and stuff like that, so I don't have even a microwave, even though this will 100% work with the microwave. The microwaves are somewhere around 800 watts, something like that, so plenty of power for me. Very important, this is a 1000 watt continuous. It can also peak to 2000 watts. The nice thing about this inverter is the fact that it's actually connected with this wire right here on a socket. So if I'm gonna hook up the side of the van with live with 230, then the inverter will sense that current and it will automatically just run the current through it from its source onwards to the sockets in the front of the van. So you don't have to have two separate sockets, one for the inverter and one for when you're plugged in. This inverter does that automatically. You don't have to do anything. As soon as you're connected, it will just redirect the current to your sockets. It's called a transfer switch, and very important when you buy one of those. It just saves you, like I said, you don't have to have two separate sockets. Very handy. It's pretty quiet. I haven't used it to its full potential, but it's quiet and it doesn't draw a lot of power while on standby. It also has a remote. I can turn it on or off from the main space of the van. Here we have the 230. This is a garage unit basically, a 16 and a 6 amp. I'm only connected to the 16 one. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I've never used it. I've tested, so it works. Most people say that you will have to connect the earth to the van, to the shell of the van. I haven't done that. Opinions are very pros and cons. So I didn't use any earthing cable from this one. So I just have a positive and a negative going into this socket right here, from which the inverter is connected, and from the inverter I have this cable going into the main living area on a single dual socket with USB. Of course, with the RENOGY system you will also have a couple of monitors. I've got two of them. One is for the battery and one is for the solar charge controller, so you will have all kinds of information displayed there, from temperature to even to how many hours you can still use your battery, how many watts you've used, how many amps are coming in, how many amps are coming out. So yeah, very nice and useful. These two monitors, you can fit them any way you want them. Now moving on to the battery. This is the battery I have chosen. Same as most of the other appliances, I've got mine from RENOGY, just because I wanted to build up the system with similar, although the same manufacturer. Sometimes it works okay if you have different manufacturers, but the best and ideal thing is to have a single brand or a single manufacturer to do the whole things, basically the charge controller, especially a charge controller with a dedicated battery. It will work better. So this is the RENOGY Smart Lithium Iron Phosphate 100 amps. And why I chose this battery, even though it is a bit expensive, I mean it's more expensive than a regular deep cycle or AGM or whatever, is if you do the math, let's say this battery right now, I think it's on sale, let's say around £500, okay, for 100 amp hours. If you're gonna get maybe two deep cycle batteries, good one, like decent ones, it's gonna cost you probably around £200 each battery. But with regular deep cycle batteries, what you have to know is that you can only use half of the amps. So if you have a 100 amp hour flooded or deep cycle, basically you will only have 50 amps to use. After that, the battery may go into a critical condition. You can ruin the battery. So in order to have for you to have a full 100 amp hours, you will need 2 leisure batteries. With the lithium, it does exactly what it says on the box. You have a full 100 amp hours. So if you do the math, basically you will need 2 deep cycle batteries to have 100 amp hour, where with the lithium you have the full 100 amp hour on a smaller battery, much lighter, and of course many more cycles, because with the lithium you have let's say close to they guarantee around 4,000 cycles, where with a leisure battery, standard acid or AGM or whatever, you will get maybe close to 400 cycles. So that's a plus as well. What you do have to know, it's lithium, it doesn't like cold and it doesn't like heat. It depends where you're gonna live in the world, but here in the UK winters are not that brutal. But the thing is, lithium doesn't work with negative temperatures. So if you're gonna have, let's say, maybe -4 degrees inside the living compartment or close to the battery, you can drain out the battery, but you cannot charge it. Like I've said, depends where you live in the world, or if you're gonna use them during the winter. The ideal thing is to take them inside, especially that these batteries have a so-called shelf mode. So what you have to do is you get one of these. It's just a connector with an LED on top. So you connect it right here, and then a light will come up. It's very dimmed, you barely can see it right now, because right now the battery is in shelf mode, which means that this is the ideal way to store them over the winter or over long periods of time where you will not use them. And to wake up the battery, you just press this button right here for 3 seconds, and then I don't know if you can see it or not, but this LED is now lit up. And now it's on. To turn it off again, you just press and hold, and the battery will go to sleep. Just press a bit more, 2, 3, and there we go. The LED is now off. I did have a problem with one of the batteries. For some reason, the battery went into its shelf mode, and no matter what I did, I could not wake her up. I've contacted RENOGY support, and in about a week or so they've sent me another one. I did ask them, I mean, don't you want to repair it or something, because it's an expensive battery and maybe it's just a loose wire or something. They said no, just throw it away. Of course I didn't. I'm gonna try to fix it. Yeah, definitely I would recommend getting the lithium batteries, just because when you write down everything on a piece of paper and you see the pros and the cons, and especially the longevity of the battery itself, it's gonna last you for years and years and years. And don't even mention the space you're saving, the weight you're saving. This is very light. I'm not sure exactly the weight, but I would say somewhere around 12-13 kilograms, something like that. So extremely light. You can mount it in any position you want. You can put it upside down. You can do whatever you want with it. Yeah, I really like it. So from my whole vacation while I was away, I think the most I've drained the battery was around 40%, something like that, and that was after 3 days of I was stationary under a tree with no solar panel, with no solar power coming in at all. Very thick shade. And after 3 days of using using the fridge, very intense heat, 30-35 degrees, so the fridge was going almost non-stop. After 3 days I think I've reached around 45% of the battery. But when I left after those days, I just started the charging from the alternator, and in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, the battery was topped up. So really happy with this. Okay, when it comes to wires, this is what I've used throughout the entire van. Even the smallest piece of wire that I've used is this very thick 4 gauge copper, oxygen free, heavy duty wire. It's very important that you use very thick wires. That way you will not have any risk of fires or meltdowns or whatever. You will have to play it safe, and make sure you use the appropriate wires. Even though they are very expensive, I think for all the for the wire, I've paid probably in excess of £100. Yeah, I know it sounds a lot, but you're only gonna buy it once and you will never be sorry about it. Just play it safe, especially if you're gonna upscale the system. The wires can get really hot and they can really literally melt down or burst into flame. So make sure you buy good and solid oxygen-free copper wire. Even when you read the instruction manual, they will say which kind of wire you should use, especially if you're gonna use it as one piece of long wire. For example, the wire that comes into the battery from the solar charge controller for it to charge from the van. I think I've used 6 meters of so one piece of 6-meter wire. And it's very important to be scaled correctly. Don't get cheap on that. Very important. 4 gauge equivalent to 25 millimeters. On the 230 side, I've also used this very thick marine grade 3-wire cable. I'm not using that much, maybe let's say about 2 meters. Now let's talk about tools, crimpers, crimping tools, crimps and all that crazy good stuff, because yeah, it is a bit confusing. Okay, so this is my box of ring connectors. To mount those connectors on this kind of wire, you will need a crimping tool. Now I've got mine from Amazon. I'm gonna link everything I've used down below. It's called Toolwiz. It goes up to 35 millimeters, so that's 2 gauge wires. And what you do basically is you just stick this in right here on the end of the wire. Of course, you cut it, you put it in, and you just press on this, and you will have a perfect connection. Sometimes I've seen that I will have to do it maybe 2 or 3 times, maybe put it in the position, rotate it 90 degrees, and then re-crimp, just to make sure. You have to pull really well on the cable. Don't let it loose. Make sure you do the test. You're doing a test and really pull on the terminal. Make sure it stays there. You don't want any cables to get loose and just wiggle about, because you're gonna burn stuff, and yeah, stuff is expensive, right? This came very handy. This is a wire stripper. Yeah, so you just pop the wire in there. You press on it, and it trims the wire. Of course, small wire like this, not as big as the 4 gauge, but this came very handy. And also you can crimp small connectors with it, small terminals, the 12-volt side. What I've used for all the connectors, like the fridge, the lights, and everything, you'll have to use these small terminals. They are different from the 230 side, which they look like this. 230 connectors are not the same with 12 volts, and yeah, you will just have to buy them. You got no other chance. This is how they look like. You can see, let me show you a bigger one. It's round, but once you crimp them with a special crimping tool, a different one, you see, this just goes in here like so. Don't know if you can see it, but these connectors are square. Yeah, so different from the 12 volt side. So yeah, I think these are all the tools that I've used. Of course, we're gonna have the Stanley knife and all the other kinds of tools around you. You're gonna need them, but this is what I've used, and to be honest, everything works as it should. I had no problems whatsoever. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, let me know. All the links of everything I've used are down below into the description. Best of luck, and I will catch you guys next time.